All right, I'm shooting a quick video here to talk panel gaps. This has been a huge topic of discussion. Even Elon himself mentions it in early on stages, that disappointed that they couldn't get some of these right, comparing them to other companies that could get things like pop cans to meet up perfectly. So I'm going to walk you through some of the imperfections and are these gaps a big deal? Are they noticeable? Whatnot? I'll show you what they look like on my Founder series. So as I approach the rear of my car, you notice the first little gap we'll talk about here. This gap here to me is almost perfect. If it's anything, I'd say it's ever so slightly bigger at the top than the bottom, but that does not bother me in the slightest. Here's a go in along the top. This gap here, if you'll notice, it does differ slightly to me. The gap between the stainless and the black is slightly larger here and gets slightly smaller as it goes up here towards the top. Again, that is not necessarily a big deal for me, but there is a slight gap. Over on the right rear of my truck, the panel gap is very consistent top to the bottom, as well as very consistent as far as the gap between the black plastic and the stainless, and that remains its consistency all the way up to the front. Back on the driver's side of the vehicle, there is a portion here where the back panel meets the door panel. If you notice, it does stick out a little higher. From this view here, you can see I do have a significant lip here on this side. And it's hard to see, but if you notice really closely, it's actually been sanded. They made an attempt somewhere to make that a little bit more consistent. As far as my door gaps, I cannot notice any distinguishable difference in the gap from top to bottom. That is perfect both on the front door and on the back door. I see no issues whatsoever. Again, the front door, again, very consistent panel gaps. Here on the front, where the door trim meets the front trim, this again does not meet up perfect. And you can kind of see from this angle, this stands out a little bit. Again, on my truck's a little dirty, but you can see they made a perhaps even more aggressive an attempt to stand that back to make it match. Here, again, looking right at the face, this gap consistency is very the same. However, what you do notice is from this angle, the outside lip here stands up past, probably a good 1/4 inch past the front trunk. And some of these other trucks I've looked at, this is totally flush here. So this is a little, again, another small slight imperfection on my truck. As far as the front, the gap here, again, very similar all the way across. And this one does meet much more flush than the front trunk meets with the side of them. The gap across the front, again, very consistent all the way across, no discernible difference. The gap top to bottom, again, no discernible difference. However, the gap on this side, again, this front panel here sticks out farther towards me than this one. So if you notice here, I can see more inside panel, significantly more. I'd say probably a good 1/4 to if not 3/8 of an inch more I can see here, where this front panel is brought out back towards me, where that doesn't quite line up as perfect. Up here on the top, again, this is very similar, where the front trunk panel is actually lower than this side panel. Again, you can kind of see the raised lip from the side. This little panel again here, where the top door trim panel kind of comes down, again, does not meet perfect here. As you can kind of see, again, I don't know if the video picks this up, it has been sanded. You can notice, again, maybe from this little lower angle, this sticks out, again, probably a good 1/16 plus of an inch. Again, so like this is actually potentially sharp enough that this could catch your clothes, this could catch perhaps. Again, door gap, very consistent. Middle door gap, very consistent, no problem, both in its width and in its just overall flush from one door to the next. Again, no qualms with the gaps on this whatsoever. My last gap here, I should say second to last gap, is one thing I did notice here is the door trim on the right is actually higher than the base trim of this rear quarter panel. If you notice there, it's physically higher. So you can kind of see that lip kind of stick up. Again, not necessarily a huge deal, but it does stick up. And then again, very similar to the other side, the door panel is set into the car slightly more than the quarter panel. So I can see the lip on this side. It can catch slightly. And again, ever so slightly, you can see, maybe not in the video, but in person, you can see it looks like it's been sanded ever so slightly to help that match up a little bit better. One last thing I'll show you here. So this is in the very front of my car. Again, this side is nearly flush. The steering wheel or the front windshield comes out and it barely tucks just below the stainless of this trim. Back over here on the right side, as you can see by the wiper, this is set, the windshield itself is set back into the car much deeper. I have about a quarter inch extra raised stainless going up this direction as I do on this side. Yeah, so those are just the basic kind of, flaws, the gap flaws. So how much does that bother me? And the truthful answer is none. It could not bother me any less if I tried. So I think, honestly, it's a big deal to do about nothing. Let me know your thoughts. Does it bother you? Is yours different? Is yours worse than mine? Is yours better than mine? Mine's very consistent. Not a big deal. Doesn't bother me. And actually, I've been noticing other gaps in panels, whether it's stainless or just a typical plexiglass in other cars. I feel, honestly, it's very consistent, very standard to what I've come accustomed to. Let me know your thoughts in the comment below.